Welcome aboard the safest airline in Africa. With industry-leading safety measures to protect your well-being. The first in Africa to earn a diamond standard of safety. Offering a more contactless, safe, and seamless experience. Delivered with a smile by Africa's first fully vaccinated crew. Creating special memories that bring the joy back to flying, so you can continue making memories with your loved ones. Book your flight with RwandAir today. RwandAir, the safest airline in Africa.
RwandAir, fly the dream of Africa.
So we pick travelers, our typical customers are people flying in and out of the country. So we pick those from the airport to wherever they're going and back. And we do this through a network of driver partners for whom we give regular business and improve livelihoods. They can book through WhatsApp, they can call us, they can email us. You know, we just try to make it as simple and convenient, as seamless as possible for our customers.
The Digital SMEs and Career Mentorship Program. The world economy has undergone a massive digital transformation and created a need for startups to adapt to these technologies. We intend to help save women and youth-focused businesses with the skills required to stay relevant. Join the movement today. Register today. HCI, working together to change the startups and SMEs narratives of Africa.
Ladies and gentlemen, let me welcome you to the second edition of the Career and Startups Intelligence Series. This is a program that has one singular objective, which is to help SMEs and startups in Africa, particularly those that really have a desire to create jobs and make sure we can lift people out of poverty. What we intend to do is to make sure we offer the needed strategies, working processes, and also help all ourselves to be able to deal with the impact of COVID on businesses. You would agree with me that a lot of businesses have been wiped off, and those that have not been wiped off are indeed struggling. But today we are privileged to have two of the finest gentlemen in Africa who are going to walk us through what we need to do in times like this. And I'm talking on my right here, the senior partner of PricewaterhouseCoopers in Uganda, Mr. Francis Kamulegeya. And he's going to be helping us to appreciate and understand the key startups, processes, and management essentials that we all need to know to be able to navigate our ways to be able to create sustainable, profitable businesses. And then on my left, I have here my good friend, Eric Osiakwan, the managing partner of Chanzo Capital and a board member of several fintech companies. Now, Eric is a tech wizard. And in recent years, he's become a venture capitalist. And so Eric is also going to help us to understand how SMEs and startups in Africa can navigate, again, their way out of being able to attract funding. You and I know without funding, a lot cannot be achieved. So Eric is going to help us, on that perspective. How can we attract funding so that we can create wealth, create employment, and kick poverty out of the continent? Francis, it's been a pleasure to have you.
Thank you, Emmanuel.
Very, very pleasure. Now, Francis, let me say this, that it's interesting. I look at your CV.
Yes.
And you are not just, a chartered accountant, a tax expert in Uganda, but in recent times you become a farmer.
That's my startup.
And that's
Yeah.
that's very interesting. So
Yes.
so from where you sit,
Yes.
and from a professional standpoint,
Correct.
what would you consider to be the impact of COVID on SMEs, both as a professional and also as a farmer?
Yep.
Just a brief summary as by way of introduction.
Thank you very much, Emmanuel, and good afternoon, colleagues, friends, and everyone watching this live webinar. It's really an honor and pleasure to be here. COVID has had tremendous impact on businesses, especially the small, medium, micro enterprises and startups, both positive and negative. And I think we've had enough about the negatives. Let me dwell about the positives.
Sure.
By their nature, startups are small, they're just starting up, they're agile, they're dependent on very entrepreneurial people, and they don't usually have the bureaucracy and the difficulty in terms of decision making that bedevil big organizations. So when you look at the so-called new normal, especially working remotely, the digital environment, you'll find that very many startups have repurposed themselves very quickly and actually helped us to navigate the pandemic in terms of the way we've been living. Take, for example, people who are in the delivery business. Mm-hmm. You may find somebody who had a boda or public transport on a motorbike, and when we went into a lockdown, mm-hmm. they quickly repurposed themselves and got into delivery businesses. Sure. The same goes with those very high-tech entrepreneurs who went into education and remote learning. But most importantly, delivery of medicine and telemedicine has actually revolutionized the medical services. So there's just been enough about the negatives, and I don't think we should spend time talking about the impact of COVID on businesses. But right. Agility and the ease with which one can repurpose themselves, and the young firms by their nature are very, very agile. And I think we'll hear a bit more from our colleague on that. Wonderful. But on the overall, for myself, and I'll talk about my fishing business, for instance.
Yes, yes. A little bit of it.
We've been doing fishing in Masaka, which is about 130 or so kilometers southwest of Uganda here. And we used to rely on bulk purchases by people coming from the DRC and Rwanda. And of course, when the borders were closed and also the issues that we had on the border on both countries, we found ourselves with so much stock, and it was time to offload. And then we did a bit of research in our local areas. We actually realized that there's a local market for our fish. People wanted the small fish, which is small and affordable, and then we got into processing and smoking it and packaging it, and suddenly we don't need to rely on foreign markets anymore. And that's a classic example at a personal level of agility and also innovation, and trying to stay local, because with COVID, we realized that so many countries were closing their borders. And one of the companies that have been most successful is playing local. And we'll talk about that in a minute.
So if I hear you right, yes. Francis, in a sense, what you are saying is almost synonymous to, if you have read a book they call Acres of Diamond, yes. where the guy had a field which was full of diamonds, but he thought that he was broke and he needed to go and look for greener pastures elsewhere. Yep. Sold the land, went outside, then later on just discovered that those who bought the land had access to this diamond. Yes. So in a sense, the COVID impact is not all that bleak.
It's not.
Fantastic. Yeah. Eric, now you for 15 years you've been investing in Africa startups and SMEs. And I just want to know from where you sit, how has the COVID impacted on your investments in Africa?
Thanks very much, Mr. Emmanuel Day-to-me, and I want to join Francis in greeting all of you and to our viewers all around Africa and around the world. I want to put on record that Mr. Day-to-me actually inspired me when I was a student.
All right.
In 1994, I was in Accra Academy, which was my high school, and he had started something called Foundation for Future Leaders.
You make the guys think I'm an old guy.
I didn't mean that, but he came to our school and gave a seminar, and it was one of my most inspiring moments that got me to start thinking beyond a Ghanaian and thinking as an African. And after school, that christened my life. And fast forward, I first came to Uganda in 2004, 2005. Helped set up a few businesses here. Even helped set up the internet exchange here, and then helped with the .ug domain. And then fast forward, last time I was here was 5 years ago at a seminar organized by Shona, which is a local group that work with startups. And now I'm back again at this invitation. Great. So I consider Uganda and Kampala a second home, part of my homes in Africa. So it's really exciting to be here. But it's more exciting because I think net, COVID has been a positive for Africa.
Yep.
I think on the healthcare side, if you look at the global numbers, Africa had the least impact.
Correct.
Of course, every life is important. I think one life loss is as important as many lives. So we are not underplaying the fact that we lost lives. But if you look at the global numbers, I think that our public policy decision to have shut down our borders really saved us. Because as we know, our healthcare systems are not as sophisticated as the developed world. So if we had any of that magnitude of impact, I think it would be very devastating in Africa. But also secondly, I think that Africa has had a lot of viruses. I mean, the last we had was Ebola. So I generally think that we have a stronger immune system. And so I think that played a part. I think there's empirical data to support the fact that there's quite a number of people that had COVID that were asymptomatic. Right. So it's probably that I got COVID, but I was totally asymptomatic, right? And I transmitted to somebody who was symptomatic, right? But I think with time we'll get those numbers and we'll begin to look at them. And I think thirdly, I think what really helped also was somehow the weather condition. I think that generally COVID, the virus thrives in a cold environment, and I think it was the summer in Africa when the virus came. So somehow God was on our side, so to speak. Nature on our side, so to speak. And so that's sort of the medical, side of things, and then the health side of things. And then if you look at sort of the economic side of things, our president was known for making a very profound statement. The president of Ghana said, we can revive the economy, but we can't resurrect people.
Exactly.
So we needed to shut down in order to save lives. Yeah. And I think that at that point, that was the right decision to make from a public policy point of view. Because you need people to be alive to get back. And I think that on the recovery side, when you take now my industry, which is the tech industry, I agree with Francis again that net, we had a positive impact. So I'll give you some examples based on the areas that you focus from our portfolio. Sure. So in our portfolio companies, we then realized during COVID that we had 3 general classification of companies. We have what we call virtualized businesses. That are businesses that need people to go online. Right, for it to work. So we had a company called eCampus, a learning platform. You mentioned that. That company had struggled before COVID. Actually, we nearly shut out this company 2 years ago. I told the entrepreneur, if you don't give up, we'll support you. And then come COVID, guess what? These companies' numbers went like that. Right? And then we had a second set of company which we call mobility businesses, which is business that need people to move. One of them is a company in Kenya called Hotel Online. We have an office here in Uganda as well. It's the company that gets 2 3-star hotels online. So the big chains like Sheraton, great name, great man, has all the resources, the technical infrastructure. But 2 3-star hotels cannot afford that infrastructure. So we do what this company does is it goes to these hotels and provides them software as a service. And essentially brings them online and then drive traffic to those hotels. Of course, when COVID hit, most of those hotels struggle, right? And now to the agility point. So the CEO of this company then came up with a totally new revenue line. And that's how we survived COVID. And today, that company is now exceeding 2021 projections to the extent that we actually have taken over the management of a hotel here in Kampala. Great. Right. So in a manner of speaking, that was sort of the second set of company. Then in the middle, between those two, was what we call the semi-mobility businesses. Which is companies that were doing e-commerce, food delivery, essential services, health services. So Chanzo Capital, one of our areas that we have not been successful in is investing in healthcare companies. So 2 of our investments that have failed are healthcare companies. Guess what? One resurrected during COVID.
All right.
A company that had died.
It is really good.
And during COVID, suddenly their services were needed, and that company is now back into business. Right. So in a manner of speaking, I think that COVID, as you said, got us to internalize and recalibrate. But also that it gave an opportunity to business, especially startups, as you said, that were more agile and nimble. Of course, they are the most vulnerable as well, which is quite interesting that their advantage is also their disadvantage, right? Because if you're a large corporation, you have cash reserves, you can stick around. But then your revenues are not coming and your overheads are high, right? So even though you may be a big company, you can drop debt immediately, right? Because your overheads are really high. But if you're a startup and you can be very nimble and agile, your revenues may be shortfall, but if you can keep it around for a little bit, which is what we really did with our portfolio companies was, what we call the cut out the fat and leave the muscle. So we came up with the term internally. So we help the companies to cut out all the unnecessary fat. But you need to keep the muscle. because you need a muscle for the company to stick around for things to come around.
Right.
And that's how we're able to keep all our 12 portfolio companies throughout COVID, and we didn't lose any company.
Interesting.
And now we are, into our second fund, and we already got a big LP commitment to the fund.
Wonderful.
And this can be said for other fund managers across the spectrum in Africa.
Wonderful.